Ahmed Buhari, a Lagos-based technology businessman, is roughly half the age of incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari. He aspires to become Nigeria's president in 2019. You are running on the back of an intergenerational campaign. It is also a well-known fact that you were a major supporter of the incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari, a septuagenarian, against the then People's Democratic Party candidate, Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, who was also a younger candidate. Why did you do that?
So first of all, thanks for the opportunity, and I do not know where you got the information from that I was in total support of the emergence of this current administration. Be that as it may, for us, we are going to always stand against governments or administrations that are not living up to the expectations of the people, especially when it comes to the dividends of democracy that they promise to deliver. And it's on those grounds that we may have supported a different administration from the Goodluck Jonathan administration at that time. And it was simply because we wanted a better administration that was going to tackle the cases of insurgency in the Northeast. We were also concerned about the corruption that was bedeviling our society and our economy. And all of those things together was what informed our decision at that time to see how we could bring about a new government. And we didn't take long to realize that the new government that we had put in place did not have what it had promised us, or a proper roadmap to delivering to us what it had promised Nigerians. And we wasted no time, and we told them that it was time up. And that was when we did make a declaration to run for the office of the president. Among all the young people running today, I was the first to make that declaration on the 1st of October 2016, and it was born out of our desire to stop standing on the sidelines and actually, come out to let people know that this can be done. 2 years down the line, I'm very impressed, I'm very excited, I'm a bit proud to say the narratives are changing slowly.
In one of your Facebook posts recently, you apologized to Nigerians for supporting President Buhari. Why do you think Nigerians should trust your judgment this time around, peradventure you emerge president of this country?
Very clearly, I think one of the reasons why governments do not succeed is simply because of the process that gets them into office. And that is why each time I remember the late Umar Musa Yar'Adua, I just actually say to myself, we do miss a president that might have been the best president we ever had. Because I remember in his opening statement when he was being sworn in, he said, though the powers that elected me into office may have been corrupt, I am going to ensure that I give Nigerians the kind of democracy that they deserve. And from there on, you could tell that it was a man that was prepared to, work for Nigeria, despite the fact that he had people who had put him into office. So right now, we're having these problems we're having in this country because we allow politicians give us money during electionary processes. And each time a politician puts his hand in his pocket to pay for a campaign process, bear in mind that when he gets into office, he's going to recover that money. But he's not just going to recover that money, he's going to recover the money at an interest rate that only he can determine and at a return of investment time that only he can determine. So what we are saying to Nigerians is if we do want that dividend, if we do want good democracy, we would have to be ready to pay for the kind of democracy that we deserve, or we will be paid for the kind of democracy that we get.
Why do you think you're the best man for the job? And I just need you to rank yourself amongst other aspirants.
Naturally, I will rank myself as the best amongst all the aspirants, if not for anything else, for the fact that I actually led this movement. The fact that I found I could discover within myself that there was no point for me to stand on the sideline anymore and complain, and that if we want anything to be done right, we would have to get into the mix and get it done. And that is when and for me, that is one of the most courageous things we would ever get from a Nigerian youth who, despite all the odds with regards to our political structure, decided that we're going to get into this mix and get it changed.
Allow me to restrict you a bit. What would be your top 3 priorities for the Ahmed Buhari's administration?
Like I've always said, if we want a country that will have to work, we would have to have a united country. Anytime you find the people that are not united, they cannot progress. So for people to progress, they have to be united. For people to progress, they have to be secure. For people to progress, They have to have a system of governance that is decentralized. When I mean decentralized, I'm talking about a lot of restructuring that has to be done. And then fourthly, we would have to find a way to make our people leverage on their comparative economic advantages. Those comparative economic advantages are the things that will make us understand that despite the fact that I'm from the West, the East, the North, or the South, we do have something that we have to do that will help develop our economy. The fact that people live in isolation, whether from any part of the country that they belong, it is actually really pulling us apart. We need to now let the people in Aba know that as opposed to going all the way to Turkey to import leather for their shoes, bags, and belts in area market, they can actually get it from Sharada in Kano, where they can actually process this leather and actually get it cheaper. And then you find a cohesion between Kano and Abia State, and the people in Kano and Abia State will have no reason to fight themselves. These are the things that we need to actually start cultivating in the minds of the people. The mindset of the people has to be changed, but the only way it can succeed is when we have an economic viability that is being propelled by by having to leverage on our comparative economic advantages. That is missing, and that is why we are the way we are today.
So the first is economy.
The first thing is a united country. The second thing is a secured country. The third thing is a decentralized system of government. And the fourth thing is to have a people that can leverage on the comparative economic advantages.
Good thing you did talk about the economy. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, 16 million Nigerians, as I speak, are unemployed. I need you to be very specific. How many jobs would you create on a yearly basis, and how?
We're not going to lie to Nigerians. The one reason why we're not moving forward is because we don't even know how many people we're dealing with. Before we can actually move forward, we would have to know how many Nigerians actually exist, how many Nigerians we're going to be catering for, how many Nigerians we're going to be providing social amenities for. If we don't have that number, then I don't know why we're building a budget. So each time our country or our government produces budgets, I keep asking, budget for who? Because when you ask the Interior Minister how many people exist in this country, he tells you around 170. If you ask another member of that same government, he tells you over 200. And then 30 million people is a lot of number. That's some countries in Europe. And so when I see this budget, and I'm like thinking, this is a replication of the budget from the previous year, and how is it going to actually meet the expectations of the people? So what I really think we would have to do is to have proper data management systems that's going to let us know how many people we're dealing with. If we don't know how many people we're dealing with, then we cannot have a plan, we cannot forecast, and we cannot meet with the desires of the people, especially when it comes to delivering the dividends of democracy. So very frankly speaking, we would have to diversify our economy. Yes, this administration came on board, and it really started with the diversification of the economy, but I think it hasn't been done properly. So even if we're going to agriculture, for example, which is one of the easiest, most likely area that would have to be focusing on, then we would have to look at how we can leverage on all the value chain that exists within the agricultural sector, whether we're going to be focusing on the farm, the agriculture itself, from the processing plants, to the storage plants, from the storage plants to the branding and packaging and onward delivery. People would have to be put into all of these facets when it comes to the entire value chain of our agricultural setup. Otherwise, we will not have people actually getting into jobs. Like the last time I actually sent a direct message to the Minister of Agriculture, I said very clearly to him, each time you ship out tubers of yam from this country, you're not just shipping out tubers of yam, you're actually shipping out jobs. Because when you send these tubers of yam to America, they don't consume this yam. They take them to the processing plants, and in that tuber of yam, there are extracts that you can use for the pharmaceutical industries. There are extracts that you can use for the cosmetic industries, and they bring back those finished products to us at a better value, and we'll have to pay for them. Why don't we have those things here, process them here, and get Nigerians jobs? You cannot imagine the number of jobs we'll be able to create from the entire value chain, just from agriculture.
Interesting. Nigeria's economy is still very much monolithic, and budget are financed by crude oil receipts. What would you do in a scenario, for instance, where the oil is selling for $30 per barrel?
Like I've said, I am a strong advocate from the plan away from oil, PAFO. So whatever we want to do right now, moving forward as a people, would have to start thinking of how we can plan away from oil. Because if you look at it very critically, oil isn't one of the biggest things anymore in the world. Everybody seems to have its own oil. And for some other people, they're actually moving away from oil to more interesting technologically moving machineries like electric cars. So if that is true, and if that is happening, then the earlier we start thinking of what to do with ourselves, the better for us. Whether we're going to start focusing on our solid minerals, whether we'll have to start focusing on other natural resources that we do have that we've not explored, I've not even started exploiting, and time is going, because very soon our oil is going to go further down. As a matter of fact, my first degree is in geology, so I can tell you very clearly that at this time, with the shale gas that just got discovered in America some 6 years ago, there is no way America is going to be coming back to take oil from us. And the only reason why the oil moved up a little bit was just because of the situation in Syria and the likely possible situation that's going to happen in Iran. But so if everybody is peaceful, that means we're not going to be, so we're just going to be here hoping that people get to fight, and so that we can get our oil prices going up. We have to plan away from oil, and planning away from oil will have to do with a lot with how we can leverage on the entire value chain of our agriculture, focus on solid minerals, see how we can actually start ensuring that whoever is going to, develop our people. And that's one key area that is missing. So we have a huge number of people. I remember somebody asking me recently, with a country like Nigeria going close to 100 million people, what are you going to do to see how we can shrink the size? And I said, I don't have a problem with a good number of people that we have. We're just not using them rightly. So if you find some countries with a lot of people, they train some people with a special skill, and people who have shortage of people come to those countries to see how they can get manpower. The worst thing that can happen to a country or to a people is when they do not have the kind of workforce that they require to move the economy.
I looked up your website and I did notice that it does not contain some content of the economy, and I'm assuming you are still consulting on the subject.
No, so because we're running a campaign, when we started talking, we realized that most of the aspirants were actually replicating the same message we were giving out. And so we decided that, you know what, we're going to slow down, we're going to push out all of these things when everybody has finished saying the gibberish they want to say. And at that time, hopefully, people will start knowing where exactly the true message is coming from. So, like I said to you...
so that content is ready, but it's just not out there?
Of course, it's ready. So going by the INEC regulations also, we need to be very careful when you take out your content, what you're taking out, what message you're sending out. And again, consultations never stop. I could have a conversation with you today and you could give me a very fantastic idea. I put you in my team and see how we can develop better strategies to move this country forward.
Okay, for now I'm a journalist, so I'm not yet.
More than anything, you should think of yourself as an Nigerian, and if you have the right information to help this country move forward, do not hesitate. Free the market. I keep saying to everybody, free the market. The fact that you want to control the market forces will actually pull you down. So for example, it doesn't make any sense if, for example, you're saying that the man in Maiduguri who comes all the way to Lagos to take his oil to sell in the petrol station in Maiduguri should sell it at the same price with the man who just took his own to Ibadan, or the man who sells his own in Lagos. So the loss is high there, and that is why even if you're going to bring back the subsidy or you're going to take off the subsidy, some people are still going to be buying this fuel for over 445 naira in some parts of the country. And the only way we can get this thing resolved is if we allow the market forces to apply. So let the force for demand and supply.
So the argument is that it has to be that the masses will have to pay more.
The argument would be that if you allow the market to go free, the prices will come down because of the force eventually, and the competition would be there. I remember when we started with the telecoms, I'm not going to mention the names of the telecom companies, but at the time we started, some of them were actually charging us per second. So when you pick up your call, it charges you about 16 naira. But when more of them came on board, the market was free, and the forces in the market with regards to demand and supply actually informed how much they were ready to go down just to ensure that they remain in the market.
What's your position on the state ownership of corporations like Ajokuta Steel Plant and the petroleum refineries across the country? So
if you heard me very clearly from the beginning, I said if we have a united country, a secured country, and a decentralized country, a decentralized system of government. So this decentralized system of government is what my own idea of restructuring is all about, which means that states can own their own resources. And work on it to the betterment of their people. So I give you an example. If the people in a certain part of this country are complaining marginalization or are complaining we're not being carried along, most times their grievances actually point to the center. That's because of how the country has been structured. But in reality, they forget to say, hey, we did vote in some members of assembly, we did vote in some senators, we did vote in a governor. What are they doing about our plight? So because of the way the country has been structured, everybody wants to look at the center for whatever it takes home. We're saying that every area should take care of itself. And what the government should just do, what the center should just do, is what it takes with regards to percentages to run its civil service, to run the military, and to run the security forces.
So what are your plans for Ajaokuta and the refineries?
Like I said, it's a state matter, so the state should take care of it.
So you sort of give it back to the state?
Yes, and that is at that time you can tell very clearly that the state of Kogi can do very well if it has its resources at its own disposal, and when they're not doing well, the people know exactly who to hold accountable.
I mean, it's a known knowledge that internal security in Nigeria is failed. From the Middle Belt area to the Northwest and the Northeast, which has dealt with crisis for the past 10 years. And it seems as if even the security of the country is unable to contain it. What would you do differently? Like
I said, decentralization. So if everything is holding in the center, we can see very well that the center can't hold, it's breaking. And so when you allow these things being run by the state government themselves, you will start seeing results. I expect that we'll start...
So would you decentralize the armed forces and the security agencies?
We're not going to decentralize the armed forces, but we're going to decentralize the police. The police is going to be, we're going to have what we call state policing, even though we're going to have a structure that is going to ensure that the state policing systems within the states are going to be monitored by a central unit that's going to ensure that the politics and the politicians within those states do not abuse the police service.
Actually, my next question was on state policing, and you took me up on that. But how would you control the structure where we've seen state governments waking up and acting in certain ways to crack down opposition, and that's for those who argue against state policing, that has been their argument. How would state police work for the people and to secure lives and property against the interest of a particular government of the state?
Well, the people can keep saying what they want to say, but the truth of the matter is, even right now, with the fact that the police is being controlled from the center, they're still being abused. We're still seeing state governors taking control. So what we're saying right now is, if we do have a proper system, a proper structured system that's going to make sure that the police within the state are going to be monitored, or should I say, yes, monitored by a central police service unit that is going to ensure that they're going to be living within the ambit of the new structure that's going to be provided. So the only reason why these people are abusing the police service at their disposal is because there's no proper system that stops them from abusing the police service. The police, when you send the police to the governors, they're under the control of the governors. Sometimes because of what he's paying them. At the same time, you hear the police within the state say, I cannot do this for the governor because the IG has called me out. And then you have a problem here. So we have to have these things properly understood, and this is where the National Assembly has to come into play to put proper systems that are going to lock up this police service and its activities to ensure that they're not being abused.
Would you consider I mean, we never know. There's still they say 24 hours is a long time in politics. Would you consider dropping your ambition? And by this, I mean stepping down for any other younger candidates ahead of the election.
Like vision. So if the fact that it's a vision, it means if I'm not the one that is leading this, it is still going on. And so the only reason why I'm still on this is because there's a vision that we have, and we want to see it get to the very end.
What would your final pitch be for a voter that is watching you right now? And why should they vote for you instead of President Muhammadu Buhari?
First of all, I'm not related to Muhammadu Buhari.
You bear the same name?
Yeah, we bear the same name. What's your name again?
My name is Mercy.
Mercy, and a lot of Mercies around here, but I will never consider you to be the other Mercies. So the same thing, I want Nigerians to understand that it's just a name, and that for every man, he shouldn't be judged by the color of his skin, the religion he practices, or where he's from, but we should also always focus on the content of his character. And based on those based on that, I want Nigerians to understand that if we do want to move this country forward, those things that we complain about that happen to us when it comes to, we say we've been marginalized, we've been pushed aside because of our tribe, because of our religion, we should be careful not to do that to other people. Because in trying to castigate a man because of his name, you're actually doing the same thing that you complain is being done to you. So I expect that Nigerians will focus on the issues, will focus on people that have got the content, and see how we can move this country forward. But more than anything else, I think one thing I've always heard from people is, why didn't you decide to run for the office of the governor or state assembly or something lower? Some people even say, why do you think you're good enough? And I keep telling them that I think I'm too relevant for my generation to hear that I existed without making an impact. So more than anything else, I want people to understand that what we have started is not just because we want to cling on to power, but it's because we need to let people understand that if you do not allow responsibility to be transferred from one generation to the next at the right time, a vacuum will be created. And the moment people start feeling that they are not expected to give anything to a system, they become wayward. And that's exactly what we're battling with now.
Ahmed V, thank you so much for your time. I hope I can shake you.
It's fine.
Thank you so much.